Blastoise Hollow from Pokemon Base Set had the ability Rain Dance that said as often as you like during your turn, you could attach one water energy to one of your water Pokemon. So this was the first ability of its kind, and it's led to many other renditions of this type of card in the Pokemon TCG. As you probably know, the Baxcalibur is coming out in the Pokemon Paldea Evolved set, and I could go and tell you about how powerful Baxcalibur will be combined with Chien-Pao, but instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over all the other previous renditions of Rain Dance in the Pokemon TCG, and we're going to see why some of these succeeded and other ones did not perform as well. These are all the Rain Dance type Pokemon going back to Black and White, and of course with newcomer Baxcalibur. First, we're going to start things off with Emboar. Emboar was first printed in Black and White with later printings in Next Destinies and Legendary Treasures. With the Inferno Fandango ability, let you attach as many fire energies from your hand as you liked to your Pokemon during your turn. It won the World Championships, and this is the list that David Cohen piloted to a first place. Emboar had a lot going for it at the time with amazing setup with Pokemon Collector and Cleffa. It could find its rare candies easily with Twins, and had very strong attackers with Cherrim as a great basic attacker. While Rayquaza Deoxys Legend was sort of difficult to set up, it was very powerful once you got it going, but your most powerful attacker with a limitless damage ceiling was Magnezone, which could hit limitless damage with that Lost Burn attack, whilst also having a great draw engine with that magnetic draw. Emboar also saw some success later on in his lifetime with Rayquaza EX, but never was able to capture that same success it had at the World Championships. So what made Emboar so good was it had a great draw engine with Magnezone, great setup with Cleffa and Pokemon Collector and Twins, and then also had amazing attackers, Reshiram, Magnezone, and Rayquaza and Deoxys Legend. Next up we have Blastoise, and while I could look at Jacob Van Wagner's 2015 World's winning list, instead I'm going to choose to look at Daniel Altsevilla's 9th place list from the 2014 World Championships. I'd say this is one of the closest resemblance we have from any of these decks on the list to what we're working with today in Chien-Pao Baxcalibur. This deck had Keldeo as its big one-shot attacker, having close to a limitless damage ceiling, and Black Cherrim EX could also one-shot basically everything with that Black Ballista attack doing 200 damage. And we also had Electrode for magnetic draw, because one thing this deck could struggle with is if your attacker got knocked out and you got end to a low hand size. We had Skyla to fish out our candies, and plenty of great ball search with Ultra Ball, Level Ball, and Heavy Ball, as well as Tropical Beach to fill up our hand at the end of the turn. I would say what made this deck so good was it was very easy to search out your rare candies with Skyla, and also being in a slower format does definitely help out Skyla's viability. You had Electrode to refill your hand, and there's great attackers with Keldeo and Black Cherrim EX. Somebody at the Pokemon Company must really like Magnezone, because it's got a lot of these Rain Dance style cards over the years. But I'll knock them out one by one because none of them was terribly playable in the TCG. The first one is the Breakpoint one with Magnetic Circuit ability that you attach as many lightning energies as you liked from your hand to your Pokemon. So you're powering up Pikachu EX, which had a very solid attack that had a very high damage ceiling. You had a Raikou for a solid single prizer, Tapu Koko GX for a great GX attack, as well as Abyssal Hand or Octillery to refill your hand at the end of turns. This deck was just very clunky. You had to play lots of energies. Pikachu was a true glass cannon, being able to be easily knocked out by single prizers, and you had no great way to find rare candy. This one, the format is starting to speed up, so Skyla just simply wasn't quite as effective anymore. Now into the Magnezone from Ultra Prism, and it was definitely the most successful of these three. You had Duskmane Necrozma as its main partner, but it never really was very consistent because you had to play lots of metal energies, and you didn't really have a great way to find those metal energies, and you didn't have a great way to find rare candy. I guess Volkner was your best option, but you had no Dedenne or Shaman or any way to draw your cards, so playing Volkner for your turn felt really bad. Finally, the Lightning Magnezone, easily the worst of the three. This came out in Forbidden Light right before Pikachu, Zekrom, and Thunder Mountain Prism Star were printed, so once those cards came out, there simply was just no reason to run this Lightning Energy Acceleration Magnezone. So these ones were missing some key ingredients from the previous two. While they did have solid attackers and ways to refill their hand, they just didn't have the consistent way to find rare candy to get their energy accelerator in play in the first place. Now we have Hydreigon, which has a Rain Dance style ability but for dark types. This never really saw any success at all, except for at the very end of the Vivid Voltage meta when people paired it with Mewtwo and Mew, Chien-Pao Tyranitar, and Darkrai Umbreon. It was a pretty funny meme deck at the time, but as you can see in this list here, you have no cards that can find you rare candy, and only 3 Pokecoms is the only way to find Hydreigon. So this deck was incredibly high rolling and inconsistent. You could draw well and completely steamroll your opponent, but more often than not, you drew poorly and things went very badly. So this just was not very consistent at all. It had amazing attackers, some of the best the game has ever seen, but you could hardly ever set up, so it was not very good. Frostmoth is a tough one to rate because the majority of his lifetime was during the COVID pandemic when there was no IRL play. So the majority of his lifetime was online, and it did have one very strong performance in the Players' Cup when Tord Raklev took it to a top 4 finish with this Inteleon Frostmoth deck. But Frostmoth is a bit different than other Rain Dancers. It only can be 2 benched Pokemon, so a bit watered down, pun intended, than some of the other Rain Dancers that we've seen in the past. And this deck did not have the best attackers in the world. While Inteleon had a ton of HP and a solid second attack, is not even close to the best attacker that we've seen in this video, but it had probably the best consistency engine of any of the decks on this list. It had Crobat and Dedenne for Pokemon-based draw, it had Quick Ball, Pokecom, and Evolution Incense for Pokemon Search, and Capacious Bucket to find our energies. So this deck was just simply the most consistent, so that's why it performed well. And finally we have Cherrim, whose Sunny Bloom ability lets you attach as many grass energies as you like from your hands to one of your non-Rulebox Pokemon. So this has to be one of the least successful ones in this video, probably only to the Lightning Magnezone. This is the only way anyone's ever played to any success, is alongside the Lost Origins Snorlax, and even that is pretty suspicious. It got a Day 2 in the European Regional Championships, but this deck just pretty much everything had to go right for it to succeed. With only 180 damage on your Snorlax, you have to start swinging very early and very quickly, otherwise you're going to start falling behind in the prize trade, and his hand disruption is going to ruin your day because you have no way to refill your hand really, aside from Radiant Greninja or I guess Pyukumuku. So late in the game, you're getting spammed with Judges or Roxannes, your board will quickly fall apart. So this deck was just not terribly consistent. You didn't have great attackers, pretty much everything that some of these other decks did not have. Cherrim just did not really have too much to work with. So we have identified the characteristics a Rain Dance deck needs to be successful. It has to be consistent, it has to have good attackers, it has to be able to beat hand disruption, it has to be consistent enough to actually get its Pokemon into play, it needs to have good attackers, because otherwise you're going to be like Cherrim Snorlax, and you're not going to be able to not do anything. You're be able to beat hand disruption, especially in a format with Iono, because what's so good about getting fast, getting set up, having great attackers, when at the end of the game you just get sputtered to a halt by hand disruption. And finally, here's the list I promised you. I saw Omnipoke's video yesterday. I really liked how straightforward his list was, and I figured it made perfect sense with the video that I was making today. We have all the characteristics that I mentioned previously. We have a great attacker, Chien-Pao. We have great consistency with Irida, Battle VIP Pass, Ultra Ball, Nest Ball. We have great way to find our energies with Chien-Pao's ability, and great ways to recover them with superior energy retrieval. We also have great backup attackers like Radiant Greninja and Kyogre. And last but not least, we're able to sustain it against Iono and Roxanne because of Bibarel. So that's all I got for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. I tried to put a lot of time into editing this one, so it looked nice and clean. So if you enjoy this more highly edited content, let me know, because it's sort of a pain in the butt to make, but I do it for you guys. And if you want to watch some more Paldea Evolved content, then how about you check out my tier list right here.